The sun has already slipped below the line of rolling hills that circle the old country inn, and the sky holds only the faintest memory of daylight, a soft lavender that fades into deep blue at the edges. The air outside has cooled, and inside the inn, the warmth of the day lingers gently in the thick stone walls and the wide wooden beams that cross the ceiling. You stand for a moment in the main hall, listening to the quiet that has settled over the house now that the last of the guests have made their way upstairs to their rooms. There is no sound of footsteps, no murmur of conversation, only the slow and steady silence that fills the space between the walls. The floorboards beneath your feet are old and worn smooth by decades of footsteps, and they give slightly under your weight with a soft, familiar creak. You know each board, know which ones will sound when stepped upon, and which ones remain silent. This knowledge is not something you learned consciously, but something that has seeped into you over time, through countless passages up and down these halls, countless evenings just like this one. The wood is dark with age, a deep brown that shows lighter patches where the grain has been polished by wear, and in the dim light of the remaining lamps it gleams faintly, as if holding within itself some memory of the sun that is now set. You pause and let your gaze move slowly around the hall. The walls are paneled in wood halfway up, and above that they are painted a soft cream color that is yellowed gently with time. There are paintings hung at intervals, landscapes mostly, showing the hills and valleys of the surrounding countryside in different seasons and different lights. You have looked at these paintings so many times that you could describe them from memory, every brush stroke, every detail, but still you look at them now, letting your eyes rest on each one as you pass, as if seeing them for the first time. The hall is not a large space, but it feels generous, with high ceilings and a sense of openness that comes from the careful arrangement of furniture and the absence of clutter. A narrow table stands against one wall, its surface empty, except for a small vase that holds a few stems of dried lavender. The scent is faint but persistent, and it mingles with the other smells of the house, the beeswax and the wood smoke and the faint mustiness that comes from old stone and old wood. You take a breath, drawing the air deep into your lungs, and you hold it for a moment before releasing it slowly. The act of breathing feels deliberate, conscious, as if you are marking this transition from the busy hours of the day to the quiet hours of the night. Your shoulders drop slightly, releasing a tension you did not know you were holding, and you feel yourself settling more fully into the present moment, into the calm that surrounds you. You begin to move through the downstairs rooms, your footsteps soft on the polished wooden floors. Each step is measured, unhurried, and you feel the slight give of the boards beneath you, the way they respond to your weight, and then settle back into place. The corridors stretch ahead of you, dim now, lit only by the brass lamps that hang at intervals along the walls, their glass shades glowing with a warm golden light that seems to pool on the floor and climb the walls in long wavering patterns. The first lamp hangs just beyond the entrance to the hall, suspended from a brass chain that is attached to a hook in the ceiling beam. You stop beneath it and reach up, your fingers finding the small brass key that protrudes from the base of the lamp. The metal is cool against your skin, smooth and slightly worn from years of being turned. You grasp it gently between your thumb and forefinger and begin to turn it slowly, feeling the resistance as the mechanism inside adjusts the flow of oil to the wick. As you turn the key, the flame responds, growing smaller, drawing down into itself. The light that fills the corridor dims, and the shadows that have been held at bay begin to creep forward, reaching across the floor, climbing the walls. You watch the flame as it shrinks, watching the way the light changes, the way the golden glow becomes softer, more muted, until it is barely more than a suggestion of brightness and the gathering dimness. There is something deeply satisfying in this small act, in the control you have over the light, in the way you can shape the atmosphere of the house with just a turn of your fingers. You release the key and step back, looking up at the lamp to make sure the flame is steady. It burns quietly, evenly, a small point of light that no longer pushes back against the darkness, but instead coexists with it, creating a gentle balance between light and shadow. You nod to yourself, satisfied, and move on to the next lamp. This one hangs a little farther down the corridor, marking the turn toward the sitting room. You approach it with the same slow, deliberate pace, your footsteps barely making a sound on the floor. The corridor here is narrower, and the walls seem closer, more intimate. The lamp casts its light in a smaller circle, and when you reach up to turn the key, you can feel the warmth that radiates from the glass shade, a faint heat that brushes against your hand. You turn the key, and again the flame responds, lowering, softening. The shadows deepen around you, and the corridor becomes a place of quiet gradations, of light fading into darkness, of edges blurred and soft. You stand for a moment after adjusting the lamp, simply looking down the length of the corridor, watching the way the remaining light plays across the surfaces, the way it gleams on the polished wood of the floor and the smooth painted plaster of the walls. There is a third lamp at the far end of the corridor, and you walk toward it now, your pace unchanged, your breathing slow and even. The house is so quiet that you can hear the faint creak of the floorboards under your feet, the whisper of your clothing as you move, the tiny, almost imperceptible sounds that fill the silence and give it texture. You reach the third lamp and repeat the process, reaching up, finding the key, turning it with careful precision. The flame dims, the light softens, and the corridor settles into a deeper stillness. As you move through the house, adjusting each lamp in turn, you become aware of the rhythm of the task, the way it unfolds in a series of small, repeated actions, each one the same and yet each one slightly different. The feel of the brass keys varies from lamp to lamp, some smoother, some slightly rougher, some requiring more effort to turn, some turning easily under your fingers. The height of the lamps varies as well, some hanging low enough that you can reach them easily, others requiring you to stretch slightly, rising up on your toes to grasp the key. You do not count the lamps as you go. Do not keep track of how many you have adjusted and how many remain. The task is not one that requires counting or planning. It is simply something you do, moving from one lamp to the next, allowing the rhythm to carry you forward. There is no goal beyond the completion of the task itself, no destination beyond the final lamp, and even that feels less like an ending and more like a natural conclusion, a place where the rhythm simply comes to rest. The light in the house continues to dim as you work, the brightness of the early evening giving way to a softer, more subdued glow. The shadows grow longer and deeper, filling the corners of the rooms, pooling beneath the furniture, and the house begins to take on a different character, a quieter, more inward quality. It is as if the house itself is preparing for sleep, drawing in on itself, settling into the stillness of the night. You pause in the doorway of one of the smaller sitting rooms, a room that is rarely used but is kept ready nonetheless. Its furniture dusted, its curtains drawn back to let in what little light remains from the windows. There is a lamp on a side table here, and you walk over to it, your footsteps slow and soft on the rug that covers the floor. The rug is old, its colors faded to soft shades of rose and blue and cream, and it muffles your steps completely so that you move in near silence. You reach for the lamp on the side table, and as you do, you notice the small objects that surround it. A porcelain figurine of a shepherdess, her painted face serene and slightly worn. A small wooden box with a hinged lid, empty now but still bearing the faint scent of the cigars it once held. A book, its cover faded and its spine cracked, lying closed with a ribbon marker tucked inside. These objects are part of the life of the inn, part of the accumulation of years, and though they serve no practical purpose, they contribute to the sense of history and continuity that permeates the house. You turn the key on the lamp, lowering the flame, and the room dims around you. The windows, which had still held a faint trace of the evening sky, now reflect only darkness, and you can see your own reflection dimly in the glass, a shadowy figure standing in a room filled with soft amber light. You turn away from the window and move back toward the door, leaving the room to its own quiet, its own stillness. The scent of beeswax hangs in the air, familiar and comforting, a smell that has become inseparable from your experience of the inn. It comes from the candles that were lit earlier in the evening, their wax now hardened and smooth in their holders on the windowsills and side tables. The candles are made locally by a woman in the village who keeps bees and harvests their wax in the late summer, and each candle carries with it the faint, sweet smell of honey and the fields where the bees gather their pollen. You can smell the beeswax mixed with a faint trace of wood smoke from the hearth in the sitting room, a scent that seems to have soaked into the very fabric of the house over the years, into the beams and the floorboards and the plaster of the walls. It is a scent that speaks of warmth and safety, of evenings that have passed in quiet contentment, one after another, season after season, year after year. It is a scent that tells of winter nights when the fire burned bright and the guests gathered close to its warmth, and of autumn evenings when the damp crept in from outside and the smoke from green wood filled the rooms with its sharp, resinous smell. There are other scents as well, layered beneath the beeswax and the wood smoke, scents that come and go depending on the season and the time of day. The faint mustiness of old stone, cool and slightly damp, that rises from the floors and the walls. The smell of linen, clean and fresh, that drifts down from the rooms upstairs where the beds have been made with crisp white sheets. The scent of lavender dried and placed in small sachets in the drawers and cupboards, filling the house with its sweet herbal fragrance. And sometimes, very faintly, the smell of the fields and the woods that surround the inn, carried in on the breeze when the windows are open, a smell of grass and earth and growing things. You breathe in deeply, drawing all these scents into your lungs, letting them fill you, and then releasing them slowly. The act of smelling, of paying attention to the scents that surround you, brings you more fully into the present moment, anchors you in this place, this house, this particular evening. You are aware of the way the smells change as you move through the rooms, the way they grow stronger in some places and fainter in others, the way they blend and separate and blend again, creating an olfactory map of the inn that is as familiar to you as the visual one. In the dining room, the scent of beeswax is particularly strong, for there were many candles lit here during the evening meal. The long table that runs down the center of the room was set with care, and at intervals along its length, candles burned in their brass holders, casting a warm, flickering light over the white tablecloth and the simple china plates. The guests sat around the table, their faces lit by the candlelight, their voices low and companionable as they shared the meal. But the meal is long finished now, and the candles have been extinguished, their wax cooling and hardening in the holders, their wicks dark and still. You walk slowly around the table, running your hand along its edge, feeling the smooth, polished wood beneath your palm. The table is old, older than the inn itself, perhaps, a massive piece of furniture that was brought here when the inn was first established and has remained ever since. The wood is oak, dark and heavy, and its surface is marked with the small scars and imperfections that come from years of use. There are faint rings left by hot plates, shallow grooves left by knives that slipped, tiny dents and scratches that tell of countless meals served and countless gatherings held. The chairs are pushed in neatly around the table, their backs straight, their seats empty. You do not need to adjust them, for they are already in their proper places, but you walk around the table anyway, checking each one, running your hand over the curved backs, feeling the smoothness of the wood, the slight coolness of it under your touch. These small acts of checking and touching are not necessary, not in any practical sense, but they are part of the ritual of closing the inn for the night, part of the way you mark the transition from the active hours of the day to the quiet hours of rest. There is a sideboard against one wall of the dining room, and on it stands a lamp, its flame still burning with the brightness it held during the meal. You walk over to it now, your footsteps muffled by the rug that lies beneath the table, and you reach for the brass key. As you turn it, lowering the flame, you notice the objects that sit on the sideboard beside the lamp. A water pitcher, white porcelain with a simple blue pattern around the rim. A stack of linen napkins, folded square and placed in a neat pile. A small tray that holds the salt and pepper shakers, their silver surfaces tarnished slightly despite regular polishing. These objects are part of the daily life of the inn, used and cleaned and put away and used again, and yet they have a kind of permanence to them, a sense of having been here always and of being destined to remain here always. You do not think about this consciously, but the thought hovers at the edge of your awareness, a quiet recognition of the way things endure, the way routines and objects and places persist through time, providing a sense of continuity and stability. The lamp dims under your touch, and the dining room settles into a softer light. The windows along one wall are dark now, reflecting the interior of the room rather than showing the world outside, and you can see the table and the chairs and yourself standing by the sideboard, all rendered in faint, shadowy forms on the surface of the glass. You turn away from the window and move toward the door, glancing back once as you leave to make sure everything is in order, that nothing has been left out of place. You make your way down the corridor toward the front of the inn, passing the doorway to the dining room. The long table inside is bare now, the chairs pushed neatly into place. Earlier in the evening, the table was set with simple white plates and linen napkins, the silverware laid out in careful rows. The guests gathered there, speaking in low, easy voices as they shared the evening meal. But that time has passed, and the room is empty now, the only light coming from a single lamp on the sideboard. You step inside and turn the key on that lamp as well, watching as the light softens and the room falls into a deeper quiet. The floor creaks gently under your weight as you walk, a sound so familiar that you hardly notice it anymore. It is part of the rhythm of the house, part of the way it settles and breathes as the day turns to night. The creaking varies from room to room, from board to board, some deep and resonant, others high and sharp, and together they form a kind of language, a way the house speaks to you as you move through it. You have learned this language over time, learned to distinguish between the creak that means a board is loose and needs attention, and the creak that is simply the house settling into itself, adjusting to the changes in temperature and humidity that come with the turning of the day. You move through the small sitting room where a few of the guests spent the early evening, reading by lamplight or gazing out the window at the hills. The chairs are empty now, arranged in a loose semicircle around the hearth. The cushions on the chairs still hold the faint impression of those who sat there, shallow dents in the fabric that will slowly fade overnight as the cushions regain their shape. You walk over to one of the chairs and run your hand across the cushion, feeling the slight give of the padding beneath the fabric, the warmth that still lingers from the person who sat there. There is a book on the side table next to the chair, lying open with its pages turned down to mark a place. You glance at it, noting the title on the spine, a novel you have seen before, one that has been read by many guests over the years. The pages are yellowed slightly, and the binding is cracked along the spine, signs of the book's age and the number of hands that have held it. You do not close the book or move it, for it is not yours to touch, and the guest who left it there will likely return to it in the morning, picking up where they left off as if no time had passed. There are other signs of the guest's presence in the room. A pair of reading glasses folded and placed carefully on the arm of another chair. A teacup on a saucer, the tea long since gone cold. A faint ring of brown marking the inside of the cup. A shawl draped over the back of a chair, its soft wool trailing down to brush against the seat. These objects speak of the lives of the guests, of their habits and preferences, of the small comforts they seek as they pass through this place. You note them without judgment, without intrusion, simply acknowledging their presence as part of the life of the inn. You move to the window and look out at the night. The glass is cool against your fingertips when you touch it, and you can see your breath faint on the surface, a small cloud of moisture that forms and then fades. Beyond the window, the world is dark, the hills invisible now against the sky, the trees reduced to darker shapes against the darkness. There is no moon tonight, or if there is, it is hidden behind clouds, and the only light comes from the faint glow of the stars, scattered and distant. You stand at the window for a long moment, looking out at the darkness, listening to the silence. There is something peaceful in this view, in the knowledge that beyond the walls of the inn, the world is vast and quiet, that the fields and the woods and the hills are all there, unseen but present, continuing their slow, eternal existence regardless of whether anyone is watching. You think of the animals that move through the darkness, the foxes and the badgers and the owls, each one going about its business with the same quiet purpose that you bring to your tasks in the inn. You turn away from the window and walk over to the hearth. The fire that burned there earlier in the evening has died down to a bed of glowing embers, and you stand before it, feeling the warmth that still radiates from the stones. The hearth is built of local stone, large blocks of gray granite that were quarried from the hills and fitted together with skill and care. The stones have absorbed the heat of countless fires over the years, and they give it back slowly, warming the room long after the flames have gone out. You watch the embers as they glow, their color shifting from deep red to orange to a pale, almost white heat at their centers. They pulse gently, seeming to breathe with a slow, steady rhythm, and you find yourself matching your own breathing to theirs, inhaling as they brighten, exhaling as they dim. There is something hypnotic in the sight of dying embers, and the way they hold onto their heat and their light for as long as they can, resisting the inevitable cooling, the inevitable return to ash. The poker stands in its holder beside the hearth, along with a small shovel and a brush for sweeping up ashes. You reach for the poker, your hand closing around the iron handle, feeling its weight and its coolness. The handle is worn smooth from years of use, and it fits comfortably in your palm, familiar and reassuring. You lean forward and use the tip of the poker to nudge the embers, settling them more deeply into the bed of ash that surrounds them. A few sparks rise as you do this, tiny points of light that drift upward and then wink out before they reach the top of the chimney. The embers shift under the pressure of the poker, rearranging themselves, and as they do, you catch a glimpse of the wood beneath, charred black and glowing faintly at the edges. The logs that were placed on the fire hours ago have been reduced to fragile skeletal forms, their substance consumed by the flames, leaving behind only this fragile structure of carbon that will crumble at the slightest touch. You do not touch it, do not disturb it further, but simply let the poker rest against the embers for a moment before withdrawing it and setting it back in its place. You straighten up and take a step back from the hearth, your eyes still on the embers. The warmth on your face begins to fade as you move away, and you feel the coolness of the room assert itself, the temperature difference between the area near the hearth and the rest of the space. It is not an unpleasant coolness, not a chill that makes you want to draw closer to the fire again, but simply the natural temperature of the house at this time of year, in this season, at this hour. You walk over to another chair, one that sits slightly apart from the others, facing the hearth at an angle. This is your chair, the one you sit in most evenings when the day's work is done and the house has settled into quiet. The upholstery is worn in places, particularly on the arms where your hands rest, and the cushion has conformed to your shape over time, creating a comfortable fit that feels almost like an embrace when you lower yourself into it. But you do not sit yet. There are still tasks to complete, still rooms to check, and you move on, leaving the sitting room and its fading warmth behind. The windows of the sitting room look out over the front courtyard of the inn, and through the glass you can see the shapes of the trees that stand along the lane, their dark forms outlined against the deepening blue of the sky. The branches move gently in the night breeze, a slow, rhythmic swaying that continues without pause, and you watch them for a while, following the movement with your eyes, letting it draw you into a kind of meditative state where thought fades and there is only observation. only the gentle back and forth of the branches against the sky. The trees are old as the inn perhaps, or older. They are chestnuts, their trunks thick and gnarled, their branches spreading wide to form a canopy over the lane. In the spring they are covered with white blossoms that fall like snow when the wind blows, carpeting the ground beneath. In the autumn they drop their chestnuts, smooth and glossy in their spiky shells, and the guests sometimes gather them, delighted by this simple gift from the trees. But now, in this season, the trees are bare, their branches stripped of leaves, reaching up into the sky like dark fingers. There are no lights beyond the windows, no lanterns or house lights visible in the distance. The inn sits alone on this stretch of road, surrounded by fields and woodland, and the night outside is vast and quiet. The nearest village is several miles away, far enough that its lights cannot be seen from here, and the road that passes by the inn sees little traffic, especially at night. Occasionally a cart will pass during the day, or a rider on horseback, but once the sun sets, the road is empty, and the only sounds are those made by the wind and the night creatures that inhabit the fields and woods. You think about this isolation, this sense of being set apart from the world, and you find it comforting rather than lonely. There is something peaceful in knowing that you are here, in this place, with the house around you and the night beyond, and that there is no need to be anywhere else, or to do anything other than what you are doing. The world continues in its course. People go about their lives in the villages and towns, but here time seems to slow, to pool and gather like water in a still pond, and you can simply be without expectation or demand. You turn away from the window and walk back into the main hall. The air here feels slightly cooler than in the sitting room, for there is no hearth to warm it, and the stone walls and floor seem to hold the coolness of the night and release it slowly into the space. You do not mind the coolness. It is refreshing after the warmth of the sitting room, and it helps to keep you alert as you continue with your tasks. The staircase rises along one wall of the hall, its banister smooth and dark with age. The wood is oak, like so much of the furniture in the inn, and it has been polished over the years to a deep, lustrous shine. You run your hand along it as you pass, feeling the coolness of the wood under your palm, the slight unevenness where the wood has worn down in places from the countless hands that have gripped it over the decades. The banister curves gracefully as it follows the stairs upward, and your hand follows that curve, rising and falling with the contours of the wood. You pause at the bottom of the stairs and look up. The stairs disappear into darkness above, for the lamps upstairs have already been turned down by the guests who are now in their rooms. You can imagine them there, lying in their beds or sitting by their windows, perhaps reading by the light of a bedside lamp, perhaps already drifting toward sleep. You think of the rooms, each one different, each one furnished with care to provide comfort and rest. The beds with their thick mattresses and their piles of quilts, the washstands with their porcelain pitchers and basins, the windows with their curtains that can be drawn against the night or left open to let in the cool air. But you do not go upstairs. Your work is down here, in these public rooms, in the spaces that belong to everyone and to no one. Upstairs belongs to the guests now, to their privacy and their rest, and you would not intrude upon that. You turn away from the stairs and move toward the front door, the heavy oak door that stands closed against the night. The door is a formidable thing, thick and solid, with iron hinges that are black with age and use. The wood is dark, darker at the edges where hands have touched it over the years, lighter in the center where the grain shows through. There are small imperfections in the surface, places where the wood has been nicked or scratched, and you know each of these marks could trace their outlines with your fingers in the dark. The door fits snugly in its frame, and when it is closed, as it is now, there is no gap, no space for drafts to enter or for warmth to escape. You approach the door slowly, your footsteps soft on the stone floor. There is a large brass bolt that runs across the top of the door, and a second one at the bottom, both of them substantial pieces of metalwork, heavy and well made. During the day, these bolts are drawn back, leaving the door free to open when guests arrive or depart. But at night, they are slid into place, securing the house against the outside world. You reach for the top bolt first, grasping it with both hands. The metal is cool and slightly rough under your palms, and you can feel the weight of it as you begin to slide it across. It moves smoothly, for it is well oiled and maintained, gliding along its track until it slots into place with a soft, satisfying click. The sound is familiar, a sound you have heard every night for as long as you can remember, and it brings with it a sense of completion, of closure, of the day being properly ended. You bend down and reach for the lower bolt, repeating the process. This bolt is slightly stiffer than the top one, requiring more effort to move, and you brace yourself as you push it across. It scrapes faintly against its track, a sound that is not unpleasant but simply indicative of metal moving against metal, and then it too slots into place with a click that echoes faintly in the hall. The door is locked now, the house sealed against the outside world. You rest your hand on the wood for a moment, feeling the coolness of it, the solid, unyielding strength. The door has stood here for decades, perhaps centuries, opening and closing, welcoming and excluding, and it will stand here for decades more, long after you are gone. There is something humbling in that thought, something that puts your own life and your own tasks into perspective, reminding you that you're part of something larger, something that extends back into the past and forward into the future. There is no danger outside, no threat waiting in the darkness, but still there is comfort in the closing of the door, in the knowledge that the house is secure and the night can pass undisturbed. The guests can sleep without fear, and you can go about your remaining tasks with the assurance that all is well, that the boundaries between inside and outside are clearly marked and maintained. You step back from the door and turn to face the interior of the inn once more. The hall is dim, lit only by the few lamps that remain burning, their flames turned low so that they cast more shadow than light. The shadows pool in the corners and gather beneath the furniture, and the hall takes on a quality of depth and mystery, as if it extends farther than it actually does, as if there are hidden spaces and secret corners that reveal themselves only at this hour. You walk through the hallway once more, checking each room as you pass. The library with its shelves of old books and its single armchair by the window. The small parlor with its writing desk and its faded rug. The alcove where the coats hang on their pegs, where the umbrellas stand in their brass holder. Everything is in its place, everything quiet and still. You do not need to check these rooms, not really. You know they are as they should be. But there is a kind of peace in the looking, in the slow progress, from one room to the next, in the confirmation that all is well. The kitchen lies at the back of the inn, through a narrow corridor that smells faintly of bread and herbs. You push open the door and step inside. The kitchen is larger than the other rooms, with a long wooden table in the center and a wide iron stove against the far wall. The stove has cooled now, its surface dark and still. Earlier it was warm, the kettle singing softly on one of the burners, the oven holding the last loaves of bread as they browned. Now it is quiet, and the only light comes from a lamp on the table, turned low so that the flame is barely more than a flicker. You move around the table, running your hand along its edge. The wood is worn smooth, marked here and there with the small scars of years of use. The faint lines left by knives, the circular stains left by hot pots. You can see the grain of the wood clearly in the lamplight, the way it swirls and flows in long, even lines. There is something comforting in the sight of it, in the simple, honest wear of a thing that has been used and cared for over time. The dishes from the evening meal have been washed and put away, the counters wiped clean. You check the cupboards anyway, opening each door and glancing inside, seeing the stacks of plates, the rows of cups and glasses, the jars of flour and sugar and tea. Everything is where it should be. You close the cupboard doors gently, one by one, and turn back toward the table. On the windowsill above the sink, a few sprigs of lavender stand in a small glass jar. You can smell them faintly, a soft, sweet scent that mingles with the other smells of the kitchen. You step closer and touch the dried flowers lightly, feeling the papery texture of the petals, the woody stiffness of the stems. They were cut from the garden weeks ago, tied in bundles and hung to dry in the pantry before being brought in here to add a touch of fragrance to the room. They will stay there through the winter, a reminder of the summer that has passed. You leave the kitchen and walk back through the corridor, pulling the door closed behind you. The latch clicks softly, and the sound echoes faintly in the narrow space. You stand for a moment in the hallway, listening to the house. There is no sound from upstairs, no creak of floorboards or murmur of voices. The guests are settled for the night, and the house is left to itself, to its own quiet rhythms and small, familiar sounds. You make your way back to the sitting room, to the chair that stands beside the hearth. It is a large, comfortable chair, upholstered in dark fabric that has faded over the years to a soft, muted shade. The cushions are deep and yielding, and when you lower yourself into the chair, it seems to wrap around you, holding you gently in its embrace. You settle back, resting your hands on the arms of the chair, feeling the coolness of the wood beneath your palms. The fire has dimmed even further now, the embers glowing only faintly in the bed of ash. You watch them as they pulse, a slow, rhythmic brightening and fading that seems almost like breathing. The warmth that rises from the hearth is gentle, barely more than a whisper against your skin, but it is enough. It is all that is needed in this quiet room at this quiet hour. Outside, the night has deepened. Through the window, you can see that the last traces of light have faded from the sky, and the darkness is complete. The stars are out, scattered across the vast expanse above the hills, but you cannot see them from where you sit. You can only see the shapes of the trees, the outline of the courtyard wall, the faint gleam of the gravel path that leads away from the inn and down toward the main road. There is no sound from outside, no rustle of animals in the undergrowth, no call of night birds, no distant rumble of wheels on the road. The world beyond the windows is still and silent, and the inn sits within that silence like a small island of warmth and light. You think of the fields that stretch away on all sides, the long grass lying flat and damp with dew, the hedgerows standing dark and quiet beneath the stars. You think of the hills, their rounded shapes disappearing into the darkness, and the narrow lanes that wind between them, empty now, waiting for the morning. You shift slightly in the chair, adjusting your position, letting your head rest against the high back. The fabric is soft against your cheek, and you can feel the faint give of the padding beneath. Your eyes remain on the embers, watching the slow fade of their light. There is no need to add more wood, no need to build the fire up again. The night is mild enough, and the house retains its warmth well. By morning the hearth will be cold, the ashes gray and powdery, and you will rake them out and lay a fresh fire for the day ahead. But that is a task for another time. For now there is only this slow fading, this gentle descent into darkness. The lamp on the side table beside you casts a small circle of light across the floor. You glance at it, considering whether to turn it down further or leave it as it is. After a moment you reach out and adjust the key, lowering the flame until it is barely visible, just a tiny flicker of gold deep within the glass. The room dims around you, the shadows growing deeper, and the glow of the embers becomes more pronounced, more vivid against the darkness. You let your hand fall back to the arm of the chair and close your eyes for a moment, listening. The house is so quiet that you can hear the small sounds it makes as it settles for the night. The faint creak of a floorboard somewhere above, the soft tick of the clock on the mantelpiece, the whisper of air moving through the chimney. These are sounds you know well, sounds that have become part of the fabric of your days and nights in this place. They do not disturb the quiet. Instead, they seem to deepen it, to give it shape and substance. You open your eyes again and let your gaze wander around the room. The bookshelves along one wall, their shelves packed with volumes of all sizes, some old and leather-bound, others newer, their spines bright with color. The small side table with its lace doily and its vase of dried flowers. The rug on the floor, its pattern faded and worn in the center where countless feet have passed. Each object is familiar, each one part of the life of the inn, part of the slow accumulation of years. You think of the guests who are sleeping upstairs, each one in their own room, beneath their own quilt. You think of the lives they have left behind for a few days, the homes and families and routines they will return to when their time here is done. They come to the inn seeking rest, seeking a break from the pace and noise of their ordinary days, and you do your best to provide that for them. You keep the house clean and warm, the meals simple and good, the atmosphere calm and unhurried. You ask little of them, and they ask little of you. It is an exchange built on quietness and respect, on the understanding that sometimes what people need most is simply a place to be still. The embers in the hearth have dimmed further still, their glow now so faint that you can barely see it. You lean forward slightly, peering into the ashes, and for a moment you think the fire has gone out completely. But then you see it, a tiny spot of red deep within the gray, still holding on, still warm. You watch it for a long time, your eyes fixed on that single point of light, waiting to see if it will fade or if it will persist. It does not seem to change. It simply glows, steady and small, a last trace of the fire that burned earlier. You settle back in the chair again, letting your body relax more fully into the cushions. Your breathing has slowed, matching the pace of the room, the pace of the house, the pace of the night outside. There is no tension in your muscles, no urgency in your thoughts. You are simply here, in this chair, in this room, at this moment, and there is nowhere else you need to be. The clock on the mantelpiece ticks softly, marking the passage of time in small, steady increments. You do not look at it to see what hour it is. The exact time does not matter. What matters is the rhythm of the ticking, the way it continues without pause, a constant thread running through the silence. You listen to it, letting the sound wash over you, blending with the other small sounds of the house. Your thoughts drift, moving slowly from one thing to another without direction or purpose. You think of the morning, of the way the light will come through the windows, pale and cool at first, then growing warmer as the sun rises. You think of the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen, of the sound of footsteps on the stairs as the guests begin to wake. You think of the way the house will come alive again, slowly, gently, easing into the new day. But that is hours away still, and there is no need to think of it now. You think, instead of the hills outside, of the way they looked in the last light of the evening, their slopes soft and shadowed, their outlines blurred against the sky. You have walked those hills many times, following the narrow paths that wane through the heather and the gorse, climbing to the high points where you can see for miles in every direction. On clear days you can see the patchwork of fields spreading out below, the ribbons of stone walls, the clusters of trees, the distant glint of a stream. But on evenings like this, when the light is fading and the air is still, the hills seem to draw inward, to become quieter and more mysterious, as if they are settling into their own kind of rest. You think of the seasons that have passed since you first came to the inn, the springs and summers and autumns and winters, each one leaving its mark on the land and on the house. The garden that blooms in the summer, filled with roses and peonies and tall, nodding hollyhocks. The orchard behind the inn, where the apple trees bear their fruit in the fall, heavy and sweet, and ready to be picked. The way the frost comes in the winter, coating the grass and the trees with a thin layer of white, making everything look clean and new. And then the spring again, when the first green shoots push up through the soil, and the birds return to build their nests in the eaves. The rhythm of the seasons is slow and predictable, and there is comfort in that. You know what to expect, know what work needs to be done at what time of year. You know when to plant and when to harvest, when to light the fires and when to let them go out, when to open the windows and when to keep them closed. This knowledge is deep and instinctive, woven into the fabric of your days, and it gives shape and meaning to the work you do. You shift again in the chair, adjusting the position of your legs, and you feel the warmth of the room settling around you like a blanket. The air is cool near the windows, but here by the hearth, even with the fire almost gone, there is still a faint warmth that clings to the stones and radiates outward. You breathe it in, feeling it fill your lungs, and then you breathe out slowly, letting the tension of the day, what little there was, flow out of you and dissipate into the quiet. The lamp beside you flickers once, the flame dipping and then rising again, casting a brief, dancing shadow across the wall. You watch it, waiting to see if it will flicker again, but it does not. It settles back into its steady glow, small and constant, and the shadow on the wall becomes still once more. You think of all the lamps you have tended over the years, the oil you have poured, the wicks you have trimmed, the chimneys you have cleaned. It is a simple task, one that requires care but not much thought, and there is a kind of satisfaction in doing it well, in knowing that the lamps will burn cleanly and brightly for as long as they are needed. Outside, a faint breeze has picked up, and you can hear it moving through the trees, a soft, whispering sound that seems to come from far away and then draw closer before fading again. It is not a strong wind, not the kind that rattles the windows or howls in the chimney. It is just a gentle movement of air, a stirring of the leaves, a reminder that the world outside is not entirely still, that there is life and motion even in the deepest part of the night. You think of the road that runs past the inn, the narrow country road that winds through the hills and connects the small villages and farms that dot the landscape. During the day there is sometimes the sound of a cart passing, the slow clop of hooves, the creak of wooden wheels. But at night the road is silent, and you cannot remember the last time you heard anyone pass by after dark. The inn is far enough from the nearest village that travelers do not often come this way unless they are seeking it out, and those who do come tend to arrive well before nightfall, giving themselves time to settle in before the darkness descends. You let your eyes close again, not because you are tired, but because it feels right to do so, to let the darkness behind your eyelids match the darkness of the room. You can still see the faint glow of the embers through your closed lids, a suggestion of light that hovers at the edge of your vision. You can still hear the soft sounds of the house, the tick of the clock, the creak of the beams, the whisper of the wind. These sounds are comforting, familiar, and they do not demand your attention. They simply are part of the texture of the night. Your breathing has slowed even further, each breath deep and easy, filling your lungs and then emptying them in a slow, steady rhythm. You are aware of your body in the chair, of the weight of it, the way it has settled into the cushions, the way your hands rest on the arms, your feet on the floor. There is no discomfort, no restlessness. You are simply present, occupying this space, this moment, with a kind of quiet awareness that asks for nothing and offers nothing, that simply accepts what is. Time seems to have lost its usual shape. You do not know how long you have been sitting here, and it does not matter. The minutes pass, or perhaps they do not pass at all. Perhaps they simply pool around you, gathering in the stillness like water in a shallow dish. The clock continues its ticking, but the sound has become part of the background now, something you notice and then forget, notice and then forget in an endless, gentle cycle. You think of the other nights you have spent like this, sitting in this chair by this hearth, watching the fire die down, listening to the house settle into sleep. There have been many such nights, too many to count, and they have all blended together into a single, unbroken thread of quietness and peace. Each one is the same and yet different, shaped by the particular weather, the particular guests, the particular thoughts and feelings you brought to it. But the essential quality is always the same, this sense of closure, of completion, of the day coming to its natural end. You open your eyes and look once more at the embers. They are barely visible now, just a faint suggestion of warmth buried deep in the ash. You consider getting up, checking the door once more, turning down the last of the lamps, making your way upstairs to your own room, but you do not move. There is no urgency, no need to rush. The tasks can wait a little longer, or they can be left undone until morning. It does not matter. The room around you is so still, so quiet, that it seems to hold its breath. The shadows have deepened, filling the corners, pooling beneath the furniture, and the small circle of light from the lamp seems even smaller than before, a fragile thing surrounded by darkness. But it is not a threatening darkness. It is simply the absence of light, the natural state of the world at night, and it feels as it should, comforting and enclosing, like the walls of the inn itself. You think of sleep, of the way it will come later when you finally make your way upstairs, the way it will settle over you like a soft blanket, gentle and irresistible. You think of your own bed, the familiar feel of the mattress, the weight of the quilts, the coolness of the pillow. You think of the way the room will look in the darkness, the shapes of the furniture just visible, the faint outline of the window, the silence that will fill the space around you. But for now, you are content to remain here, in this chair, in this room, listening to the quiet. There is something deeply satisfying about these last moments of the day, about the knowledge that all the tasks have been completed, that the house is secure, that the guests are safe and comfortable. It is a satisfaction that has no need for words or thoughts, that exists simply as a feeling, a sense of rightness that permeates your whole being. The wind outside has died down, and the trees are still again. The air in the room is cool, but not cold, and you can feel it against your skin, gentle and neutral. Your hands have grown cool as well, resting on the arms of the chair, and you think about warming them by the embers, but you do not move. The coolness is not unpleasant. It is simply another sensation, another part of the experience of this moment. You let your gaze wander once more around the room, taking in the familiar shapes and shadows. The bookshelf with its rows of spines, the side table with its lamp, the window with its dark glass, the hearth with its fading embers. Everything is as it should be, everything in its place, and there is a deep peace in that knowledge. Your thoughts have grown quieter now, less distinct, more like feelings than ideas. You are aware of the passage of time, but only in the most general sense, as a slow movement from one moment to the next, with no particular direction or destination. You are aware of the house around you, but it feels less like a structure of wood and stone, and more like a presence, a living thing that breathes and settles and holds you gently within itself. The clock ticks on, its rhythm unchanged, and you listen to it, letting the sound become the center of your awareness. Tick, 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 each one separate and distinct, and yet flowing together into a continuous thread of sound. You count the ticks for a while, and then you stop counting, and they simply continue, marking the time that passes, or does not pass, in this quiet room. You think of the morning again, but only briefly, and the thought drifts away almost as soon as it forms. There is only this moment, this chair, this room, this fading glow of embers. There is only the quiet and the stillness, and the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing. The lamp flickers again, a brief dip and rise, and then it is steady once more. You watch it, not with any particular interest, but simply because it is there, because your eyes have nowhere else to go. The flame is so small now, so faint, that it seems almost on the verge of going out, and yet it persists, holding on, casting its tiny circle of light. You think of all the lamps that have burned in this room, in this house, over the years. You think of the people who have sat in this chair before you, who have watched the fire die down, who have listened to the quiet of the night. You think of the continuity of it, the way the same tasks are performed over and over, the way the same rhythms are followed, the way the house endures, season after season, year after year. Your eyes have grown heavy, and you let them close again, not because you intend to sleep, but because it feels right, because the darkness behind your eyelids is restful and comforting. You can still sense the room around you, can still hear the small sounds, can still feel the coolness of the air and the warmth of the chair. But these sensations are becoming more distant, more diffuse, as if they are moving away from you, or as if you are moving away from them. You breathe in and you breathe out, and the rhythm is slow and even, and it seems to match the rhythm of the house, the rhythm of the night. You are part of it, woven into it, and there is no separation between you and the quiet that surrounds you. The embers in the hearth have dimmed to almost nothing now, just the faintest glow, barely visible even in the darkness of the room. You do not need to look at them to know they are there. You can feel their presence, their last traces of warmth, and you know that soon they will be gone completely, and the hearth will be cold and dark. But that is all right. That is how it should be. The fire has done its work, has warmed the room, and provided its light, and now it is time for it to rest, to return to ash and be swept away in the morning. Everything has its time, its season, and this is the season for stillness, for darkness, for the slow and gentle close of the day. You sit in the chair, unmoving, your breathing slow and steady, your thoughts quiet and formless. The room around you is dark and still, the house is silent, and the night stretches out beyond the windows, vast and peaceful. There is nothing more that needs to be done, nothing more that needs to be thought or said. There is only this quiet, this stillness, this moment that extends and extends without beginning or end. And so you remain sitting in the chair by the hearth, as the last of the embers fade and the darkness deepens and the house settles into the long, slow hours of the night.